So a little while ago, I had the opportunity to completely tear down a donor vehicle. It was a 2000 or a 2001 Denali, Yukon Denali SUV, and it had originally a 6-liter LQ4 under the hood, and that's what the owner of the truck wanted, and he let me take everything else that I wanted. So I got a whole bunch of interior parts, enough to completely make over the inside of the ugly truck right here. We're going to completely spiff this thing up with leather seats, a new cluster, new console, new dashboard. Everything from the Denali is going into the ugly truck. Well, everything that is, except for the drivetrain parts that I also picked up, because that stuff is going in my 4-wheel drive Stepside build, which is right outside. And today we're kind of going over all the differences between the parts that I just picked up and the Stepside project that I have, and how we're going to be converting it from 4-wheel drive to full-time all-wheel drive. So this is the truck that the parts you're about to see are going to get installed in. It's a 2000 Silverado 1500 Stepside. It is a 4-wheel drive, and it is already lowered down to the ground just a little bit by about 2 inches up front and 4 inches out back. I like the stance of it. We probably are going to go lower before too long, but we're going to convert this thing from 4-wheel drive to all-wheel drive. Currently it has an NP246, that's an auto track 4-wheel drive transfer case. So it has high range, low range, and the auto track mode, where basically if it senses wheel slip, like on snow and ice, it'll automatically engage your clutch pack, send power up to the front. Now the 246s are a little bit problematic, and they're not great at holding a lot of power. And for that and a few other reasons, mostly because I just think all-wheel drive is cool, we're going to be converting this truck. Now you can do this to any 4-wheel drive GM truck from all the way back to 1988. Those are a little bit different, but then especially 99 to 07s, this is a direct bolt-in using the parts that I'm going to show you. So the benefits, you get full-time all-wheel drive. It sends 36% of the power to the front wheels and 64% of the power to the rear wheels. So it definitely is rear biased, but you know, about 1/3 of the power goes up front, which is nice. And the one time I've never been able to drive an all-wheel drive truck like this in the snow and ice, and that's kind of the one thing, or one of the reasons why I wanted to do a conversion like this, is just, you know, a high-power truck with all-wheel drive in the rain or the snow or whatever. Now I say high power, and right now it's a stock 4.8, but ultimately, because I'm considering this like a Cyclone or a Typhoon clone, it is going to have a power adder, and no, we're not going to go with a 6-cylinder, but ultimately I want to do a supercharger on this one. I think that's the direction we're going to go. So my ultimate vision for this truck, supercharged, 4.8, all-wheel drive, single cab short box. I think that would be really awesome. So what parts do you need to make that happen? So all the parts that you see here, I pulled from the 2002 Yukon Denali SUV. We've got front CV axles, the front differential drive shaft, transmission, and transfer case. Now, if you want to do an all-wheel drive conversion, you don't necessarily have to grab all the things that we grabbed here. The only 3 major items that you'll need: front differential, front drive shaft, and the transfer case. Now, in terms of donor vehicles, like I mentioned, this was from a 2000 Denali, but you could also grab these same parts from an earlier model Escalade, like 2000 to 2003 or 4, somewhere in there. The Silverado SS, the 2003 to 2006 or 7, you know, limited edition all-wheel drive, you know, 6-liter Silverado. The later model Escalades and Denalis, they were still all-wheel drive, but they used a different Borg-Warner transfer case that had a center differential, and it also relied on the ABS kind of applying brakes on different corners to make the all-wheel drive function, where the transfer case that we grabbed, the NV149, this is a completely mechanical case, and there are no electronics required to make this operate, which is why I love using this transfer case so much. So NV149, a lot of people refer to it as a NP149, but either way, it's kind of the same thing. The other case that you can grab that I also would like to find, I think they're a little bit harder to find, is the NP New Process 120 that was used in the Saab 97X, which is basically the cousin to the Chevy Trailblazer SS. That's another good, strong all-wheel drive transfer case, but that one uses a torsion center differential instead of a viscous coupler, which the 149 uses. So it's a good, strong transfer case, and it'll attach to the back of a 4L60, 65, 70E. I did also grab the transmission, and this is supposed to be a 4L65 if it's original to the truck. I checked the RPO codes and it does call for a 65, and they're basically the same transmission with a few minor changes. Like the 65 has a 5-pinion rear planet instead of the 4-pinion that the 4L60s use, which makes it hold up to a little bit more torque. And I think the sun shell is hardened. The input shaft is a little bit longer. And so just a few minor differences on the inside to make the 4L65 just a little bit stronger than the 4L60. And normally, if the truck had a 6-liter, it would probably have the 4L65. Not if it was a 3/4 ton, that would have a 4L80. But anyway, we think this is a reman transmission or a replacement, and I don't know if it's a 60, 65 or what the heck it is, but I grabbed it just in case because it does look kind of new. But anyway, if you're doing a swap, all you really need is the NV149, and it'll go onto the back of any 4-wheel drive transmission. You can put this on the back of a 700 R4, on the back of a 4L60, 65, or 70. Kind of like I mentioned, they're really interchangeable. And you can also stick this NV149 onto the back of a 4L80. You just need a different input shaft for the 149 transfer case. And that's what we did on Redtide, the all-wheel drive OBS K1500. And I might eventually, well, probably, definitely will swap out to a 4L80 a little bit later on, but that's kind of down the road. Front drive line. I mentioned you need the front drive line, and that's simply because I believe the length is just a little bit different, and it might have a different yoke on this end, I don't know, but I grabbed the front drive line. I also grabbed the rear drive line just in case, but this will be too short for me. But the rear drive shaft from my truck should slip right in and be the correct length. So transfer case, front drive line, and then finally the front differential. Why do you need one of these? This mechanically is the same as the front differential that I have. It's a GM8 1/4 IFS front axle. And this one will bolt in place of the other one. The dimensions are pretty much the same. The only difference is it has a 1-piece passenger side axle, where the 4-wheel drive trucks have a little electronic actuator here. There's a shift collar inside, and there's a 2-piece axle shaft. So when you're in 2-wheel drive, the shift collar is slid back, and power flow is interrupted from the CV axle before it makes its way into the center differential, where on an all-wheel drive truck, you have to have constant power flow between all 4 wheels. So this is a little bit stronger simply because there's no disconnect mechanism in the middle. Check the RPO codes once again. If you guys are going junkyard shopping, snap a picture of the RPO code in the glove box, or if you, I took the whole interior, so I still have the RPO code tag so I can go back and reference it. But like for example, GT4 is the RPO code that says this vehicle has 373 gears, and my Stepside is a GT4 truck. GT5 is 410, and there's a couple other ratios and things like that. But anyway, oh, and the RPO code for the 4L65 I think is G32, maybe, where G30 is the 4L60. G80, of course, locking differential. But anyway, the RPO codes can tell you a whole bunch about the vehicle. But doing an all-wheel drive conversion, the important parts: front differential, transfer case. You can make a drive shaft if you had to. These CV axles are identical to the ones that I have in the truck. And on a OBS truck, on a GMT400, I actually did the all-wheel drive conversion using these exact parts. And the only major difference is, even though they're 2 totally different chassis or trucks, is that mount right there. The diff mount here is the same, the diff mount there is the same. The CV flange is the same pattern, it's the same overall width, it'll use the same CV shaft. Just like I said, that guy right there is at a different angle. So when I put this front diff in the GMT400, I had to make just a custom bracket on this side. But if you have a GMT800 like I do, this differential will easily swap over with 0 custom modification required. And that's the thing I love about this swap in my particular truck. Everything you see here will bolt right in with 0 modification required, other than just disabling the warning light for the 4-wheel drive and then putting that little shift pocket in the dashboard so I don't have to look at those buttons anymore. So that's what we're doing, guys. We're doing an all-wheel drive conversion. I can't wait to get this thing started. I definitely want to get it done before winter is over, because I want to drive this truck, a lowered all-wheel drive truck, in the snow, in the ice, just to kind of see how it's going to do. I've driven 4-wheel drive trucks, I've driven 2-wheel drive trucks in the winter, but never an all-wheel drive one. So I'm just, like I said, I'm looking forward to that. And long term for this Stepside build, yep, we're going to be doing, call it an SS Cyclone Typhoon mashup. It's going to have a power adder, it's going to have a small engine, it's going to be fun to drive, and most importantly, thanks to all these parts right here, it's going to be all-wheel drive. So thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate you. I know this is just a little bit of a shorter video, but it's a good overview of what my plan is for this truck. I do need to I want to go through everything here before I put it in. Like I said, 200,000 miles on all these parts except maybe the transmission, that's unknown. So I'm going to go through reseal and probably rebearing the front end. Definitely reseal, rebearing, and put a new chain. Maybe even a new viscous coupler in the case. I don't know. Transmission, I'll figure that out. But this is what it takes, guys, and I can't wait to get the all-wheel drive setup done. So do me a favor, do the 3 things I always ask of you. Subscribe, like, and comment. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you again in a few more days.